Ah, what an excellent choice for our image. Amanda Gorman, what a talented poet. Am I good? Excellent. I would like to invite my younger friends down to join me in the front for a story. Those who are young, those who are young at heart, those who just want a better view. We heard from Molly a beautiful song about what it is like when people see you for who you really are and love you for who you really are. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of people who are kind of famous, people that you might learn about in school one day or in your religious education classes or in books, but people who have inspired us and helped us learn how to be. And one of the things that those people often have in common is that they have a special skill where they can see exactly who they are and they can see exactly how the world should be, and they're not afraid to speak about it. So today, I wanted to tell you guys about one of my favorite Unitarian Universalist ancestors, and her name is Olympia Brown. Now, when Olympia was a little girl in the middle of the 19th century, she was born around 1840 something. 1845. He's probably right. So she was a young woman, and at that time, young women were often discouraged from getting the same kind of education that young men would get. And that includes the education to become a minister. Now that has changed a lot in the ensuing decades. Those of you who have been around Northwoods for a while will know that we have had several ministers in a row who have been women. But when Olympia Brown was a young girl, there were no women who were ordained as ministers in America. But she knew that she was supposed to become a minister. And so she told her dad, and her dad said, "Olympia, you're awesome and smart and wonderful," maybe not awesome, whatever the 18th century, 19th century equivalent was. "But I don't think you're going to be able to become a minister because you won't be able to go to the schools that ministers have to go to. And all the ministers are men, so I don't really know that a church would want you to be their minister. But I love you, and I think you're wonderful and smart." And Olympia said, "Well, I'm wonderful and I can smart, then I should be able to do whatever I put my mind to," right? So she was determined. Her family was Universalist, and her father was fairly progressive, even though he had to let her down gently and say, "I don't think you'll ever become a minister." And her father allowed both her and her younger sister to pursue college higher education, first at Mary Lyons Holyoke Female Seminary, which was not actually a seminary, but they called it that. And then at Antioch College, which was a very liberal-minded college that was opened their educational doors to people of women and people of different races. And very true, very true. So she still felt called to the ministry, even though she was able to get this great education. And so she decided she was going to go to St. Lawrence University, where she was going to go to theological school to become a minister. And in her autobiography, she writes, "Mr. Ebenezer Fisher, the president, replied that I would be admitted, but he did not think women were called to the ministry. In spite of his discomfiture at my entering the school, he was just to me as a student and never discriminated against me until I began to take steps toward ordination." Yep, she tried really hard. She went to him and she said, "I should be a minister. I want to be ordained. I've done the education." And she did. Oh, you heard this story, haven't you? You have. So when Olympia Brown completed her courses in 1863, she then had to go and convince all of the male ministers in the St. Lawrence Universalist Association. All the male ministers, she had to go to them and say, "Should I be a minister?"
And she said yes.
Well, at first they said no.
But then they said yes.
But then they said yes. Absolutely. everybody needs a straight man, and I'm not sure which one of us it is. So it's everyone. Very good. So eventually the male ministers had to say, okay, you can be a minister, because she would preach at these congregations and everybody would love what she had to say. And so eventually she was ordained, and she was very excited because even Mr. Fisher, she almost exploded. She was so happy. And then Mr. Fisher from college, remember, who didn't think, he came to her ordination. He probably did help her, but I think she probably helped him just as much. Yep. Well, it's good when we can all help each other, right? So Olympia Brown wanted to become a minister because she wanted to help people. So she became a minister in Weymouth Landing, Massachusetts. And then she took a break from being a minister. After all that work, she took a break from becoming a minister. Does anybody want to guess why she took a break from becoming a minister? Why?
Because she was tired.
I bet she was tired. That's a good, but you know what? She may have been tired, but that's not why she took a break. She took a break to go to Kansas because her friends, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, had said, hey, go to Kansas because we want you to talk to the people of Kansas about how women should have the right to vote. She did talk to the people in Kansas, and they liked her a lot. But when Olympia got there, she discovered that the transportation she was supposed to have wasn't there. The traveling companion that knew the area wasn't there. The hotel she was supposed to stay in, no one had booked hotel rooms for her. Everything that was supposed to be there was not, except for Olympia Brown, who said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get on this wagon anyway, and I'm going to go around Kansas, and I'm just going to trust that wherever I go and I talk, someone will give me a room, or at least some hay to sleep in a hayloft somewhere, and a bathroom, and that they'll give me a ride to the next place I need to go talk. And they did. So she continued to do this for a couple of years.
Until it was 2011.
Not quite till 2011, but a couple years. And then she went back to ministry. And she was the minister in Bridgeport, Connecticut for a while. Well, and Olympia also got married at this time. And during that time, women usually changed their name when they got married, but Olympia did not. She wanted to be Olympia Brown her whole life. And a couple years later, she actually resigned her ministry again and had a second child and raised kids for a little bit. And then she started to say, you know what, I'm still supposed to be a minister. So she wrote to the clerk of the Universalist Church in Racine and said, hey, I'm available I hear you guys might need a minister. And he wrote back, I like this, I'm going to tell you guys. He wrote back that the parish was in an unfortunate condition.
And he said yes.
Almost. I'll tell you when. And he said it's an unfortunate condition thanks to a series of pastors, easygoing, unpractical, and some even spiritually unworthy, who had left the church adrift, in debt, hopeless and doubtful whether any pastor could again rouse them. And that was just what Olympia Brown wanted to hear. She said, I'm in. What did she say? Yes. She said yes. And so while she was there as their minister, she rejuvenated that church and she built it up and made it strong and healthy and vibrant in the community. She invited Julia Ward Howe and Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony to come into her pulpit and share their views. She stayed there for 9 years. And then she left her full-time ministry to become an activist for women's rights to vote and to own property and all kinds of other very wild and nutty notions. And in 1919, she was one of the very few original suffragists who was able to cast a vote when women were granted the right to vote. And in 1920, she returned to the Racine Church to speak about her life's work. And she said some words that we said here at my ordination at Northwoods just a couple of years ago. And I would like to share them with you. Because the thing about Olympia Brown that moves me, that makes me think about her as a prophet, is that no matter how hard things were for her, and no matter how hard people made things for her, she never lost. She never gave up and she never lost anything. I couldn't have said it better myself. And Olympia said these words. She said, "Stand by this faith, work for it, and sacrifice for it. There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith, which has placed before us the loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for noble duty, and made the world beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message, that you are strong enough to work for a great true principle without counting the cost. Go on finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves." And try your best. Absolutely.